Romanenko. Trump is making statements right now that are sparking a lot of discussions around the world. Secondly, they indeed no longer seem like just statements made for shock value. Let's take the situation with Greenland, for example. Yesterday, the Prime Minister of Greenland, which has had self-governing status since 1976 or 1979, said that it's time to somehow bring the issue of independence to the forefront within Denmark, because for those who don't know, let's remind everyone that Greenland is a self-governing territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. He said that it's time to somehow bring the issue of independence to the forefront. This issue has been raised multiple times, and gradually over the years, Greenland has been significantly and steadily expanding its opportunities and rights in various aspects while remaining part of Denmark. I think this is clearly directly related to what Trump said, that obviously having received such a pass, and it is important to note that possibly or even likely some other support, some promises for the future, this issue became relevant. And just like with Musk, this situation challenges EU countries, shifting their focus to stabilization in the face of such challenges, who, certainly looking at what's happening, undoubtedly feel like they're riding a wave. Similarly, this situation poses challenges for EU countries, as it shifts their focus to stabilizing amid these challenges, already problematic amid the economic crisis in Germany and other EU nations, and the EU's turbulence in losing the race to Asia and the US, which are already problematic for them amid the economic crisis in Germany and other EU countries, and the turbulence that the EU itself is experiencing amid losing the race to Asia and the United States.
Kulpa, I would pay very close and careful attention to every single word that Trump says. Analysis show that approximately 78% of the promises he made were fulfilled. This is unprecedented. The average for all US presidents in total, since the beginning of the 20th century, this is below 40%. So in essence, this type of politician is essentially distinguished by the fact that he is actually doing what he says. If you looked at it, you could just consider all the various statements about the Panama Canal, Greenland, Cuba, Canada, and Mexico, among others, such as different regions like these, including, for example, the Panama Canal and so on. Pay your way to stay free. That if you don't pay for your lunch, don't talk about your sovereignty. In short, if you demand to be subsidized, you're not free, you're like a child. If you want to be subsidized, indeed, bow down, give up your sovereignty, and then And if you think you're truly free in your life, then don't really ask someone to support you or help you. I just see this kind of logic in relation to Mexico and Canada. The issue is China. Canada and Mexico shouldn't be entry points for Chinese goods. Tariffs on Chinese goods and production sites. The question here is that Canada and Mexico shouldn't be an easy entry point into the US market for Chinese manufacturers, because he wants to impose tariffs not just on products from China, but also on all countries where China produces its goods that enter the American market, for example. This is essentially the logic here. As for Greenland and the Panama Canal, I would say it's a matter of strategic routes. Just like the Strait of Malacca, there is in fact absolutely no question about US dominance there. The issue here is from a technical standpoint. It's like, in a way, he proposed selling Denmark. Well, let's say Denmark refuses. Well, there are 60,000 people living in Greenland. If they vote to be independent, truly and completely independent, there won't be absolutely any power in Denmark to fight them. Well, that's just not very feng shui, right? So indeed, they will become an independent country. Well, then the road goes on.
It's really real.
I believe that Denmark is not in a position to give them $1 million to prevent that from happening. So we can examine it closely in a more detailed manner from a technical standpoint. And indeed, in fact, Greenland is very crucial for the security of the United States. Missiles that could potentially come from Russia or possibly China into the United States will fly over Greenland. Here, in this context, I believe it is highly probable that the ultimate result of this particular statement is that the nation of Denmark will most likely consent to providing unrestricted access to military bases for the United States of America for a duration extending up to the next 3 centuries, which is equivalent to a total of 300 years.
So they collaborate very closely with the Americans. Denmark is actually one of the closest partners of the US.
I understand it's just a question.
Nowhere closer.
I mean, you know, there are closer ones like, well, there's Great Britain, for example. Yeah, that's closer. The question, the solution to the issue, business, well, they just said it that way, whether you like it or not. We need to understand that he wants to address the issue of China,